I'm not ready for the stage. All right.
We're just chatting.
That's why I didn't take notes, because we're just chatting.
We're just chatting.
Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Danger Knock podcast. I'm your host AcroNM, and today we got a special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I am a special guest.
I was going to make a joke, but I didn't want to interrupt. But it's too late because I had to make a joke about making a joke.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah, that's
proceed.
how it goes. Hey everyone, I'm Christiana, or Chris. Chris is fine.
You don't know her like that.
Yeah, it's fine though, because I would rather be called Chris than Christina,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
I get called Christina a lot. So I'm like, you know what, Chris is fine. Don't.
nothing wrong about Christina's, by the way.
No, we love Christina's, but I am not Christina. So
Yeah, I'm just Nadir. No one really gets it right the first time or mixes it up with anything else ever.
yeah.
But today we got a themed podcast, as we do on this podcast, and we're going to talk about Sinners. I was going to take notes, but I was like, we need to just be like in the moment and talk about how we feel and not just state facts. And that has nothing in relation to do with the fact that I procrastinate and I'm lazy. But yeah, she's got notes. My iPad's too far. I should have brought it closer earlier.
I'm just juxtaposing our approach to podcasting, I think. And it's not so much that like I need talking points. That's an iPad, not a notebook.
That's
But
Batman.
I can't remember names for, I don't know, for anyone.
Oh yeah, I should have pulled that up before we even started.
That's okay.
All right, you fill in the dead air while I do that. I'm just kidding. We know the main characters, right? So I was thinking that we go through it in like we go down the character list, see what we feel about them, and then talk about like just general themes,
What are we doing? Like rating them 1 through 10?
like how hot they are, or
Yeah, sure.
it's Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan. No.
Shows up twice in that movie, which is
Well,
fan service right off the bat.
yeah, I think part of me, like, I guess just to get right into it, I should have looked this up. I have no idea, like, how they possibly did that if they're filming on film. Like, how do you edit on film? Because I was, like, listening to Ryan Coogler talk about, like, all of, like, the different film formats.
Yeah.
And that was, like, very impressive in the fact that, like, it was, like, a 2 movies in one, the way that, the aspect ratio would change in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think to not watch it in IMAX is like doing the movie a disservice, because that's a part of the story.
Yeah, I'm pissed that
Yeah.
they're taking it out of IMAX for Marvel. I mean, no shade.
A little bit shade. I've been kind of off the
A little bit of shade.
Marvel's kind of pissing me off lately.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like these kind of movies just have like longer runs within IMAX to give people a chance, because like the word of mouth gave it a week,
Yeah.
because people weren't really like, when I went to the theaters on the first day, it was like very empty.
Yeah, it was empty when I went to see it. We had our choice of seats.
Oh, yeah,
And
exactly.
we literally bought tickets like 30 minutes before the movie started.
Uh-huh.
Because we were just out with friends. We're like, hey, we want to see this. Let's just go see it. Empty theater.
I did literally the same thing. And then the second time I went, it was packed.
Yep.
So it's very rare to see in movies to have like word of mouth kind of carry the movie. Usually it's like the movie's like already has a lot of like build up, and then people wait to see if people like it. But in this case, a lot of people went in like mostly blind, and just by the word of mouth go see this movie. So
Yeah.
that was very impressive.
It feels a lot to me, this movie especially, it feels like a return to pre-COVID movie-going experience. Not just because it was IMAX, because like I said, we saw it in IMAX. There were maybe 10 other people in a giant IMAX theater with us, and we were all sitting in the middle together.
Yeah.
And are we doing spoilers in this?
Oh yeah. It's all spoiled. Well, by the way, if you haven't watched it, just unsubscribe. I'm just kidding. Please subscribe. You probably aren't, honestly, but please subscribe.
Spoilers.
But spoilers,
going
yeah.
forward. But at the end, when Smoke,
Michael B. Jordan,
when Michael B. Jordan,
Michael A. Jordan
is, we should distinct. Yeah. Anyway, when he's killing the KKK guy whose name is Hawkwood.
Yeah, we skipped to the end.
But I'm just saying, like, it felt like a return to form. The last time I experienced like super raw energy from everyone in a theater. Everyone's clapping and screaming. And like I said, there's maybe, with me and my friends included, there are maybe 14 people in this theater. And when he's killing Hogwood at the end, everyone's screaming and clapping and cheering. And
that's my end game.
Exactly. It was like, it felt like watching Endgame again. And it was such a, I don't know, an aliveness, a liveliness that I hadn't felt in many, many years. And I love going to see movies at the movies. So I don't know, something about this movie will always be so special.
Yeah, I even saw, like, before the movie, like, they have, like, quotes, like, that critics give the movies, and they're like, it's an Avengers-like experience. I'm like, hold on, what are we talking about? Yeah. Then I saw the movie, I'm like, whoa. I was like, because in the movie, it takes a lot of skill to have that much buildup to be like a quote-unquote Avengers-like experience without the 10 years of movies prior, without all, like, doing all the exposition and narrative building and character development. They did it all within the 2.5 hours.
And I really have to give props to Ryan Coogler for that, because he wrote and directed, and in the span of a little over 2 hours or something like that, he created an ensemble that we now have a personal connection to, each and every one of them. And I love them all for different reasons, whether they turned or not. And he also created this, like, world in which he kind of asks you as the viewer, is vampirism really that bad, or is it something you've been wanting your whole life?
Listen, I don't know if I've said this on the pod before. If you give me an opportunity to have superpowers, I'm gonna take it. Like, I was like, one of the scariest movies, personally, people don't think it's that scary, but was The Witch.
The Vavitch?
The Vavitch. I love The Vavitch.
I love The Vavitch, man. Yeah.
When I was watching The Vavitch, I was scared because it was just like, it's like very like eerie and like a lot of that stuff. But like my ADD brain, the second like they started floating at the end, I was like, this could be a good deal.
Wait a second.
Like, what if I'm just like, oh, I'll be a witch, and then they're like, okay, you're in, and now I'm like, all right, I'm gonna save Gotham now.
Yeah.
Peace. You gave me superpowers. You fucked up.
I mean, I get it. I'm kind of the same way.
How could they have these powers and just be chilling?
You can't.
Bite a couple people here and there.
People.
Listen, you gotta weigh your options. But yeah, I think that's like a funny part of the story is like, I think we'll jump to kind of the main villain in the sense. And it's kind of cool that they introduced him like towards the middle. A lot of times in like movies, like the narrative structure is like, you're presented with like the problem and then they go about their daily life and then whatever, which it was kind of like done here when they had the flashback sequences.
Yeah.
But if you're watching just for like the first time, you can't really comprehend what's going on. It wasn't until my second watch where I'm like, that's actually crazy that they like kind of subliminal message spoiled us, but you can't even comprehend because it's like coming so fast. And then they just don't mention it for the rest of the movie until his ass like goes to that Courage the Cowardly Dog house.
Yeah.
Insert a picture here. But yeah, and I didn't read. I was on TikTok.
Okay. It was like, you started that sentence and I said...
It's like that dog meme where it's like, insert picture. I'm kidding.
No, insert it here.
Okay.
This is Nadir right now.
What's it called? But they said that the narrative structure followed more like Eastern storytelling, where it's a lot of like the plot is just like a day in the life plot, and then the issue happens and it gets resolved in like one session, as opposed to like they say like rising action, like climax falling action. It does kind of have that structure, but that was part of the reason why I kind of felt a little bit weird when I came out of the movie, because I'm like, I wish there was more of like the vampire shit. But in the reality, it's like it's just one fucked up night, and the vampire shit is actually not even the most important part of the movie. It's like a lot of like the narrative behind like what music does for people, I guess, good and bad, and like kind of a lot of religious aspects that kind of get intertwined. And the vampire like situation is kind of just like a cultural vampirism where they're literally trying to absorb not only their like souls, but their culture that comes with it.
Yeah.
Which is like when people like, oh, it doesn't have enough action. I'm like, that's not necessarily the point of the movie.
Also, that's false.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action in that movie.
Yeah. I think everything that happens in the shed makes up for everything that happens before, because you just like, it's such a loaded scene.
Yeah.
But
I mean, every other scene something was happening. There was, you're dealing with the KKK at the beginning, and then you're dealing with
which we don't endorse.
No, we don't. We hate them. And we cheered when they died.
Yeah.
And then, some dude is getting his ass shot in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And, you have these fucking awesome action sequences of them unloading the truck. Like, no, it's not an action sequence in terms of like a car chase, but them preparing the club, basically. What do they call it?
The juke joint. Yeah.
Them preparing it for that night. That was so riveting. Like you see this entire community coming together, and you see many parts of a community that maybe don't always hang out. Maybe they're not always friends. They come together to make this thing happen.
Yeah.
People who like even sometimes hate other people are there. And it's just like, wow, like you can't look away because you're really interested to see, who's interacting with who. How are they going to act next? I think about the Chow family. They're based off of real people, which I think is so, so cool. A real Asian American family that played both sides of segregation and of, laws in the South, Jim Crow, and they had a supermarket for whites only and a supermarket for blacks only, and then here they are, just doing their job, and they get caught up in a lot of shit. But
and since we're on the subject of the Chinese family, I think there was a lot of like discourse about them because they're like the insert of the non-black characters within that group, and kind of like people were discussing like their motivations and their place within the juke joint and the difference between Grace and Bo. And people were giving Grace a lot of shit.
Yeah, okay.
Online. I'm a Grace supporter. I'll say that much.
Look me deep in the eyes right now. Grace is amazing. And if you were a mother, you would have done the same thing. So shut up and stop whining.
Because no one else in the juke joint had necessarily any like full connection with anybody else outside of the juke joint at that point. She was the only one with something to lose outside of the juke joint, and everyone else either they already got cracked or they don't give a fuck. Yeah. Like Preacher Boy, he still had his dad, but he's like already like I don't give a fuck. Yeah. Like, but
you're a rebellious kid, whatever.
And Remick purposely kind of knew that, and that's why he played against that. And she's got a point, like, okay, we're gonna do after this. Like, just let them run around. Granted, could have had a better plan. Get on the same page before you start doing some Home Alone shit. And honestly,
I loved watching her make those Molotov cocktails.
Yeah. First of all, that shit took forever to light. I'm like, hurry up. But it was kind of nice that the vampires gave them like a 1,000 to like. She called them in, and then everyone's like, okay, now let's get ready. Yeah. And they started gathering their stuff.
No, I really believe that they were just astounded. And they really needed to take a couple seconds to be like, wait, is this...
Yeah, even the vampires were like, for real? Was it you talking to me?
Or maybe, and I was thinking about this, what if there's like a lag with the magic? Like you get invited, and then...
I would have been
like a second for the magic to register.
I think he just wanted to like soak. He's gathering the troops and getting them all to show up at do a bum rush. But yeah, honestly, like Grace, people were kind of saying there was a sub narrative of this is like people of color who are not black, who are in black spaces. But then when it comes to something that involves them personally, they like throw that all out the window. But it's not like Grace was thinking like, you know what? Like, I hate black people now. Let these people come in. No, she had a kid. Yeah. And she had a very good reason. And another thing was, she wasn't necessarily, like, boys with these guys anyways. When a Smoke came through, she was like, oh, great. Now you're, like, shooting people in the ass in front of my stores and shit. Bo was like, I don't give a fuck. What's up, G?
Yeah, they clearly had some history there. But I think they were involved because we don't know the full history. Maybe a favor was owed. Maybe they just, like to stay on good terms. But like a lot of business owners at that time, money talks. They had money. They were going to pay up front and they did. And so, okay, we're going to go help you out now. And then once that social contract is over and now becomes about protecting the people that you love. So that's why I don't fault Grace at all.
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing. If it was my dog, if it was my cat, I'm sorry. I'm throwing Molotov cocktails and I'm getting the fuck out of there because I need to go save my family. And my family's not here. So. And
some people were like, why didn't you just go out yourself and just sacrifice yourself? Like, then you have literally no chance and you're just like offering yourself up.
Yeah. When she died, it made a little bit more sense of the sacrifice because she kind of knew that her last hope, per se, her husband was not an option anymore. And, you know, she was going to go down fighting. If she can take down one vampire, that's one less vampire to go after their daughter.
And now, like, you saw the whole movie. In hindsight, she was correct because all the vampires got cracked.
Yep.
Except for the two. But they're doing their own thing.
They're fine.
They're fine. But... yeah, I think another character. It's not that I find no fault in him, but Preacher Boy's dad. All in all, he's kind of right. You fucking, if you didn't do that, none of this shit would have happened.
See, you're not gonna get me on a recording.
Listen, no, because
as a pastor's kid, as a recovering pastor's kid, I'm not gonna agree. But I got you.
Listen, could have went about it better. He's not being supportive. He could be like, yeah. But then these kind of things, it would have been inevitable. Because if Remick is showing up out of nowhere, he's going to get people eventually. So all in all, it's kind of like a good trap to get them all here and take them all out at once.
Yeah.
So it all works out in that way. But I think that's a good segue into like Preacher Boy as a character, which is, I mean, we both came from religious households. So we know that what it means to want to be supportive of your family and kind of do things for your family, whether it's through religion or whatever. But then the moment you want to do your own thing, there's like all of a sudden it's the end of the world.
End of the fucking world. Like,
yeah,
you want to leave home. You want to, you know, even just listening to music and watching certain television shows or whatever, playing certain games. Like I wasn't allowed to play Pokemon, wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter, like all these random things that when you think about it in hindsight, if God is so good and God is so real, then why would a video game?
Well, not only that, they say God is the most merciful. So if he's the most merciful, why are you giving me shit about this? How are you going to be less merciful than him?
Yeah.
If he's the most.
Yep.
I mean, or how are you going to be, I don't know.
I get what
I get, you get what I'm saying. But I had kind of like a similar experience because like, I haven't in a long time, but like in high school, I used to rap and do all this kind of stuff. And my dad was supportive until my like grades weren't good. And he's like, this is all just the fucking stupid rap shit. I was like, hey, whoa, it was all good a week ago.
Wait a second.
It was all good before the report cards came in. Has a point, but still. So I kind of like felt that relation to him because it's not like he was doing it to despise his parents. He like truly loved it. And the funny thing is like, oh, blues is like the devil music. Had they known what was going to happen in 2025, like show them like heavy metal or whatever.
Yeah.
Blues is like now nice, like music that your grandpa would listen to.
But the thing is was it really the music that was evil, or was it just
doing your own thing?
I mean, we can sit here and debate all day. Like, what was it that the vampires were attracted to? What was it that called them to Sammy? And was it just the talent that he had, or just the connection that he could establish? Like, if it wasn't music, would he be able to establish a connection like that with his ancestors through some other kind of medium? Like, was it him or was it music? Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny that they call it soul, because I think the key part was that it had so much soul to it that the people who didn't have a soul were attracted to it. And they're like, let me get a little bit of that.
And that's the end of the podcast right there.
I didn't even write that down. This hasn't even been on.
No.
But yeah, that's why Remick is like, yo, just give me that kid.
Give me that.
What?
Give me that.
My food?
I'm joking.
And he's like, I'll just be fine with just him, because he can give me everything that I've been lacking for the last however many years he's been alive.
Yeah. I honestly, I know it's a horror film, but it's one of the most wholesome movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, literally. It
was so sweet from start to finish. There were so many tender moments, even in the most evil parts of the story. It's it's just two communities who want to be community.
Yeah.
Like the folks in the South, whether they're slaves, whether they're business owners, whoever it is, like they just want to live their lives and have community. And then the vampires on the other side, they're called to it because they don't have anybody and they just want to feel.
All right, where, fuck them. I don't give a fuck.
But like,
hit them with a Molotov cocktail.
Why I think it's a fantastic movie is because like partway through, I'm like, well,
I'll do some Irish dancing in the yard.
maybe this ain't so bad.
Yeah. Well, that's I think what makes it such a great movie is that like people weren't even mad at the vampires at the end of the day. They're like. I see like TikToks of like black people doing Irish dancing. Like, this would have been me if I was there.
For real.
Which is like, it shows you that not to like pun not intended, but not everything's like black and white because there was like a lot of overlap in what they were wanting. But now it gets to kind of an interesting that I want to talk about between like, as a non-black person, there's two or maybe three primary characters that like you'd look through the lens of watching the movie. And that would be Grace, Bo, and Remick mostly. And I think there's like a dichotomy between Bo and Remick that I kind of noticed as a kind of a person who's not black but kind of engages in a lot of black culture and in those environments. And I always think of myself like, oh, I'm a Bo, right? I'm just with the shit. I'm with everybody. I'm chilling. I'm there, right? But I also think that there's a very thin line between being a Bo and you could very easily become a Remick by having that like expectation that I belong in there. When he was like, oh, why can't we be just a family for just today?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, damn, that would have been nice if you weren't a fucking freak. But, like I've had that same thought of like, oh, I'm down with like a lot of like the cultural aspects of stuff and want to be included and like, okay, I want to be in like, they say like hip hop is a house and like Eminem or something is like a guest in the house. Right? So him being invited in, it's like a lot of like implications to that. And maybe if that was today, it would have been different, but they didn't let him in not because he was a vampire, but because of other dangerous implications that could come from that. And if you took away like the vampire aspect of it and just took those like for face value, there's like, we know that he's fucking bad, but there's justification for Smoke and Stack to not let them in. Right? Even just when he was like, which is like a wake up call. Like you may think that you're coming in with like good intentions, but there's a lot of background implications as to kind of why certain things can or can't happen. And that doesn't mean that you can't then in one way like be invited or be a part of that community. Because if you look at what was her name, Mary, Haley, like Mary, Bo, and Grace, like no one had like questioned them being in there. Because they were integral part of the community. It's the people who aren't really part of it, but just have an expectation. It's like, oh, you have to like let me in now. You have to let me do this. You have to. They're like, we don't have to do shit.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like a really interesting part of the movie as coming from the perspective of someone who's like not black watching the movie. So.
No, I feel that. I mean, I love Mary's character, not just because I love Harry
Steinfeld. Oh, the multiverse.
I love Haley Steinfeld so much. If you haven't watched her show on Apple TV,
what's that?
Dickinson. It's about Emily Dickinson, the poet, but it's like it's really good. It's a period film, or not film, but period show. I think there's 2 or 3 seasons, but even though they're like in period where they talk very modern and like all the music is modern.
Is it like Downton Abbey kind of shit?
No.
Okay.
No, that's like true to form versus like this show breaks genres. But besides that, I as a person who is black but just didn't really grow up in black culture, I felt really drawn to her character of just like, I am on the inside, but I'm also on the outside. Like there are certain ways that I can act and not act and have it feel like a caricature because like I'm naturally instinctively drawn towards people like me, but they don't always see themselves in me. So I'm kind of here on the outside, waiting to be invited in. And I might have like 1 or 2 people who know the real me, but to anyone else looking in, I could be like Mary. Like, I know I'm not white, but like a lot of people look at me and they don't think I'm black. So like, it's a really clever, really thoughtful and caring way that I think Ryan Coogler did the casting, did the story, did all of this to include every single element of Black cultures and how the people play the role in that. Not just like culture in and of itself, but like how do you contribute to that? Because like she was shaking her ass. Like and even like the casting of Haley Steinfeld is genius in and of itself too,
because she's also
part Black.
Yeah, and
like her character was just her.
She's like my mama's dad was half Black. I was like, okay, we're pulling. But the funny thing is,
back in the day, you would be Black.
People are looking at it through the lens of like 2025 of like you're not Black. Like people will look at like Logic, who's like half biracial, like he's not Black. Back then,
half biracial.
He's half because I like double out of that. He's just biracial.
Yeah, gotcha.
But back then they had like the one drop rule, and so that's kind of why even like she had two things to worry about in a sense that kind of Stack was mentioning. One is like, okay, they think you're white, so you being with me could be dangerous to the both of us, you or her as well. And then also, if they do find out that you are like a certain percentage Black, then you also then get separated from the life that you're currently living, that they hooked her up with some white dude or whatever. And she's like, I don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
But those are interesting things that people like are looking at through the lens of 2025, which is things were different back then. And if we know Ryan Coogler, we know that he has a lot of intention of like how things happen historically, like even just including, like you said, the Chinese family or the sharecropping, the fact that they had like wooden nickels or coins to pay for things because they didn't get paid in actual like money. So, which I guess leads to a different part that I wanted to talk about is the difference between like Smoke and Stack and how it's actually funny, like, because Smoke, like there's like a lot of interesting like twin dynamics between them. And one of my closest like sets of cousins are twins.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of things that when I've like was reading about like the behind the scenes on Ryan and Michael B. Jordan's kind of research on twins, that I had like a lot of realizations of things. One of the things that they mentioned was that you sometimes in sets of twins, if one person learns something, one of the twins learns something, the other feels like they don't have to learn it because they'll always have their twin to do it for them.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize until like I saw that after the first watching, and then I didn't read it. I saw it on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then on second watching, I noticed a lot more of that later. So one example of that would be Smoke, ironically, doesn't know how to roll up his own cigarettes. So Stack would have to do it for him. So like in the first scene or in the scene where the KKK guy comes to sell him the thing, Stack is rolling it up for him and hands it to him. And then when everyone's dead and he's trying to like roll his own cigarette, he can't. And then he has to take it from the KKK guy just to get it. And he's like,
that makes me so sad.
And I was like, that when I knew that when I was watching it the second time, now I'm like even more sad. I thought he was just like under PTSD and he couldn't do it, which
could that could be part of it. He had like a tremor.
Yeah.
And so, well, throughout the whole thing, but we don't really see it.
Yeah. And so he couldn't physically, and his name is Smoke, which was funny. And then under that kind of same lens, I'm like, Stack, ironically, was bad at handling money. And people are like, oh, like stacking money, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But he was like, fuck it, just let him pay in the wooden nickels or be on like layaway or whatever. And Smoke's like, no, what the fuck? We're not going to make any money.
We got to break it.
And then then Haley Steinfeld had to go out, or Mary had to go out and try to get some money from those white people. And I just thought that was kind of like an interesting dynamic, that even their names were kind of like their opposite.
That's a really good observation. I don't know what I thought their names meant.
Yeah.
I mean, like a smokestack, is like indicative of the times that they're in, industrialization, all of that.
And even down, like, I should have done research on this, but I'll ask you since you're a pastor's daughter. They said that their real names were Elijah and I believe Elias. So Smoke was Elijah and Stack was Elias. I'm not sure if I think I actually did read this because it was on Twitter, so I had to read. But that in the Bible, Elijah and Elias were, I think, the same person, or like names that they use for the same person.
I was about to say the same thing of like Elijah.
iPad.
It's Esau and someone else were twins. So if that was if that was what Ryan was going for. I think that would have been a little bit too on the nose. So if it is Elias and Elijah,
because that was a real name, and they've only used it very rare. Like I think the people who love them use that name.
Yeah,
like
his wife, and she used Elijah for him almost exclusively.
Yeah, she would call him Smoke until she got real, and she's like, Elijah, fucking all right,
Yeah.
Enough of this.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna use your stage name right now. But I also love the dynamic of like two different versions of love, like between Smoke and Annie, and then between Stack and Mary.
Yeah,
and people are like discounting. Like obviously, the love between Smoke and Annie is very like visceral because they were together, they had a kid together, and it's like that's such a strong bond. As opposed to people were then like kind of flipping it on like Stack and Mary that they didn't have love, but you could clearly tell that Stack loved Mary, and he's making a big sacrifice by like having her live a different life for her own safety, which they both kind of did because they were both like causing a ruckus up in Chicago. They couldn't like bring that kind of life to them.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that at the end of the day, both women waited, but didn't put their life on pause. So even though Smoke and Stack are extremely different, two sides of a coin, and so are Mary and Annie, they still kind of have the same response to their love.
Yeah.
Which, you know, Annie ran her business. She kept practicing witchcraft, or I think what's it called? Hoodoo.
It's like a type of like voodoo.
Yeah. And then Mary just, we don't really know everything that she was up to. She was getting married, but
she's about to hop on the train.
She was never going to go through with that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a bide my time situation, wait until the right moment. And
6 years, she did a good job. She's like, hold on.
Yeah, she went and she found her man. But I mean, would she have done that if her mom hadn't passed away? Like, you don't really know. But in their own way, they kind of ended up in the same place, which I think is another way in which Ryan was trying to show like twins are different, but they're also the same. Like there's so many different underlying messages here that he was really working with, and I don't know if maybe we're just giving him more credit than he's due.
Nah, I think he deserves all the credit because this is like
really,
unreal.
really good.
Because they both even got a happily ever after, like an ever after, like fully ever.
Yeah.
Because Smoke is now with Annie forever in the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
And now Stack is with Mary forever as a vampire,
and
so they got
alive.
Yeah, alive. So I thought that was
they killed. Sorry, I saw this theory and I was like, I think this is true. Do you think that Stack and Mary went and killed that like really rich guy she was supposed to marry, or maybe she did marry him, to become his widow, and then killed him so they could have all of this money? Because he was like supposed to be really wealthy.
Well, that's the one thing people say about vampires. If you're a vampire, you can't be broke.
No, you can't.
Because like, how are you going to be alive forever and not figure out how to make money?
And they don't ever have jobs, so that money.
Well, you could take a night shift.
That's true.
Imagine being a vampire and you're just like a security guard. No, like they could have figured out. I mean, that could be true. I mean, that could have started them off, and then they invested.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably some like old money, so he probably had some.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, they could have figured it out. I liked how like they came in like their like whole like 90s gear, and he had like the Stack like ring. That shit was funny.
That outfit, I think everyone went.
Like, what was it, like Coogee? He looked like Biggie.
I know, the glasses.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was probably the worst part of the movie.
I don't know, I kind of liked it. I thought.
I mean, worst part as in the whole movie was fantastic.
Yeah.
But that outfit.
Someone was like, Mary like spent all these years alive just to become Puerto Rican. I was like, hey, listen, you can try things out if you're going to be alive forever.
If that was a because where were they?
Hoop earrings, lollipop.
Were they in New York?
They were in, no, I think it was Chicago.
It was Chicago?
They went back up. First of all, Preacher Boy didn't leave. He just got there. But they were like, oh, you could be on tour, which they were nice. Like, they didn't even kill him. They're like, all right, peace.
No, I mean, that was the promise that he made to his brother.
Yeah, he's like, I'll give you an offer.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to keep doing this forever. And he's like, bro, I'm done. First of all, could have gave me that offer when I was young. What am
Right.
now I'm be old forever?
Old vampire? Sorry, that should be illegal. Just like kid vampires are.
Now I got
That should be illegal.
freaking arthritis forever. Have you seen that show, My Interview with the Vampire?
Interview with a Vampire?
I thought it was
Anne Rice.
Yeah. I watched the new one.
Yeah.
And I was kind of fucked up that the girl they made a vampire and now she'll be a girl forever.
Yeah.
I was like, bro.
Yeah,
Just wait.
Just keep watching, bro.
But
Keep watching it.
yeah, it stopped at like season 1. I think there's like a season 2 or something.
Oh no, season 2 is fantastic. That's one of the rare shows where like it gets better.
It picks
when
up.
you watch. Oh my god, it's so good.
Fucking Lestat's a bitch ass.
Fuck Lestat.
He's the white guy, right? Yeah. White vampires, knock it off.
Do better. You've
Yeah,
had
do
a lot
better.
more time to be vampires.
Yeah.
Do better.
Be Puerto Rican. I don't know. What was I gonna say? I'm trying to think of like, it's kind of like off top. Like, I like doing like segues, but I just wanted to talk about Jamie Lawson's character, Pearline,
Oh yes.
the one that Preacher Boy liked. First of
Yeah.
all,
First of all, he
I had a crush on her when I saw her as the mayor of Gotham. I was like, vote for her right the fuck
I
now.
haven't
As soon as I saw her. We haven't seen the Batman with Robert Pattinson? I'm about to...
I have faith.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up. We're done here.
No, I have seen it. I just I have face blindness sometimes. I can't remember
Like,
people.
Okay, there's 2 black people in the whole movie.
I don't see color.
Well, people of Gotham didn't either because they voted for her. Then she got fucking shot by white people again. Hey, let's get it together. But yeah, so when she showed up here, I was like, and when Preacher Boy was like, I was like, listen, walk 10 miles. I understand.
I understand it now. Come on, guys.
That was just like a funny dynamic between them two. So it was kind of like people were saying that like she was kind of
A predator?
he was drinking age, right?
There was no legal.
She was cheating. I can say that
She
for
was
sure.
cheating.
She was cheating.
From what I understand,
So was Mary, technically.
yeah,
Moral of the story: don't trust women. All right, that's.
that's not the moral of the story.
But yeah, sorry, go
But
ahead.
I guess I don't know how old Sammy was because I thought that he was maybe like 17, not quite an adult, but like nearly an adult.
He's a 1932 Mississippi 17.
Yeah, I guess at that point, if you're 17, you're basically 30. But being married, being a little bit older, and she's clearly established and had a career and a reputation. I was like, girl, what's going on here?
Yeah, she's definitely grooming him at least.
Maybe. But I mean, like, it wasn't her.
But he's like,
intention.
line me up.
Yeah, he was just
line
like,
me up.
I saw you at the train
Well.
station. That's my woman.
Mhm.
So I get it.
Yeah, when he's like, she's like, I'm married, and he's like, happily. I was like, this guy's acting crazy.
This
This guy's using
on this
freaking TikTok pickup lines on her.
happily.
And then, yeah, and they were kind of positioning her as like the temptations that come with like success, but I think that just kind of diminishes her as a character because people could just be like in love or not, or just like have infatuation, especially based off of like the circumstances that they were in. But I don't know, she was
probably not to be crass, but she probably taught him some things. You know what I'm
no, Stack taught him something,
Okay,
and then
Stack
he
gave him
implemented.
words. There's nothing like being in the moment, and
Yeah.
then, you know, you're being
Show your
taught
work.
Something.
Show your-
your work. I mean, she was probably in there having the time of her life, but also giving some direction. So
One might say it was an oral exam. All right,
wrap it up.
wrap it up. But yeah, no, I thought her character was great. When she was like refusing to take the garlic, I thought there was a lot of small scenes that implemented like humor in a serious manner without it being cheesy, like Marvel humor. Like, he's right behind me, isn't he? Like, none of that bullshit. But even when Stack was just at the door and listening and just like a grin, he'd make a grin. That in and of itself was funny.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The movie, like, on its own, just like as a movie, I would put in the wholesome category.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, our little cousin, look at him.
Yeah, look at him go.
He loves cunnilingus.
I don't know if they use all those syllables, but yeah, I think so. Even Ryan Coogler said he wanted the movie to feel like a complete meal, and a lot of people are asking for sequels and prequels and stuff like that. And normally I am like that because if I get something that I like, I want more.
You want more of it.
But in this case, I feel like that would detract from the movie because the movie is not about vampires. It's not about what Smoke. It's not about what Stack and Mary did in the fucking 70s and 60s and 80s or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not about what Smoke and Stack did in Chicago, like mob stuff. Like, these are all kind of means to an end to explain a different story. Once you make it into a mob movie, it takes away the appeal of the emphasis on what culture means, what spirituality means, the emphasis of what the movie really is, and cultural, like vampirism. That you can't do if then now we're just doing a heist movie.
Yeah.
Then it's just like diminishes it.
What I would love to see if there were
I know what you're gonna say.
kind
I know
of
what you're gonna say.
expansion is a movie about the Choctaw people.
Yeah.
Like what?
First of all, they were on his fucking ass.
On him. He had to have been doing something. So I think that's another story you tell. That's another culture that you can bring into mainstream Hollywood and, show and be able to cast folk and like do all of that. I think that would be a lovely thing. I'm not a member of the Choctaw tribe. So if that is not something that they want, I don't speak for them.
Yeah.
But I am really interested.
Because then you could also circle in spirituality in that too, because they are very knowing of kind of the lore and spirituality, and that's why they knew what to do to vampires. They're like, the sun's going down, fucking we out of here.
Yeah.
I told you once, fucking KKK lady, and that's it. They were literally like, hey, there's a vampire in your house. Oh no, they were like, there's somebody bad in your house. First of all, if they weren't KKK, maybe give them a little bit more fucking briefing. They're like, he's not what you think he is. It's not like the lady's gonna be like, wait, is he a vampire? Oh, now that they're like, hey lady, he's kind of a fucked up guy. They're like, get out of here.
I like
May peace and blessings be upon you.
Peace and blessings, my brothers.
Uh-huh.
I mean, maybe it comes from experience of like, we can try to tell them things about the world and they're not going to listen because they think they know better. They think that their God can protect them.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little bit of that. I've heard some grumblings also on the internet of like, well, why didn't they go help all the people at the juke joint? Like, why didn't they do that?
How did they know that was going to happen?
Because they didn't stay. They just immediately
exactly. I'm saying they wouldn't have known.
Like they wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
People were like, well, they should have just waited it out. They knew it was going to happen. They could have just killed all of them. And it's like, that's not their place.
Yeah.
I don't know much about indigenous culture, but I do know that they don't fuck with the things that they don't have to.
Exactly.
And, they've got their families waiting on them at home and they're like, it's going to work out the way that it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I'm interested to see like the backstory of how they started chasing this guy in the first place. But I don't fault them at all for being like,
no, let's get the fuck out of here.
Not my
First of all, we can't save anybody if we're dead too.
Not my monkey, not my circus.
But yeah, I thought that was like an interesting aspect. So I would like to see a prequel to that. But I kind of like in the realm of not believing people when they tell you shit. I did like how Smoke never questioned Annie. Annie's like, these guys are vampires. Everyone's like, what do we do? No one's like, oh no, but like actually that's weird or whatever. Everyone's just like dialed in. And even when it came to
Smoke, who said he's like, I don't believe in all of that stuff, he was just like, no, but
even he kept like the hoodoo bag, like all those years, because he didn't have faith in the stuff that Annie had faith in, but he had faith in Annie
and her. Yeah. And when he was ready to die, he was just like,
he took it off as like,
I don't need this protection anymore. Because at that point he believed it. He was like, how am I alive?
Exactly.
All of this has happened and I am still alive. His brother technically died.
Yeah.
But he's alive out of all the stuff that has happened. So
he's like, I'm a clock out.
Yeah.
Like, so I loved Annie's character too, because she commanded the room without by just being herself. She didn't have to yell. She was calm and everyone respected her just off rip, which I liked.
She knew her stuff and they just trusted her, and that's on women in STEM.
Women in voodoo. But I thought that was really interesting. And then going into just like the other characters of primarily the people who are in the juke joint. I think probably my favorite character in the whole movie. Maybe Stack is, but my favorite character in the whole movie besides him was
I know what you're gonna say.
Delta Slim.
Yeah.
Bro, I fucking love that guy.
Love that man so much. Did you hear that his whole monologue in the car was about to be cut? And I'm so glad that they didn't.
Not only was that monologue about to be cut, his transition from talking about what happened to his boys getting lynched and then going straight into humming, apparently that was improvised. And then Michael B. Jordan had enough kind of wherewithal to like understand like the context of the scene and everything to then turn to Preacher Boy and be like, hey, like you got a guitar in your lap, don't you like get to it? And he this is his first role in a movie. Mm-hmm. So him like kind of going along with it was like just a nice like moment in hindsight, knowing that like there is like a trifecta connection of culture and like the seriousness of the moment. And they did what felt natural to them, and that kind of portrayed itself on the screen. Like, it just felt like you couldn't even write that necessarily. No. That you would transition from talking about, like, your home, like, your best friend's getting lynched and then getting, like, mutilated, and then going straight into the blues, which is the purpose of blues in the first place, is to talk about trauma and to kind of, as kind of like, what's it called? Catharsis to the pain. And so you just transitioned right into that, and then everyone was on the same page, which is, you have to have the right actors in place to do that, as opposed to like, that's not the line or whatever. Yeah. And then like messing up the whole flow of that. So I thought that was really good. And I'm really glad they kept it in the film, because things like that make the film more than just a vampire movie. It's about the culture. It's about, not necessarily generational trauma, but just for them, it was in the moment trauma. Like, this fucking fucked up shit's happening now.
It kind of is generational trauma too. Like, that stuff gets passed down through your bloodline, through your community. And if you don't talk about it, it just kind of gets stuck. Yeah. So he released it. And that's, I think, a moment that Ryan Coogler was trying to put into the movie of like, yes, Sammy is here and he's this conduit for something supernatural, but it's also a release of, pain, and our ancestors are here to guide us through that. Yeah. Because that feeling of like, I need to burst into song, I need to push this through a medium that doesn't include spoken word or something else that is required in this moment. And it's the blues. It's like exactly what Sammy starts doing later on in the movie. And you see with, what's his name? Right. With Delta Slim. With Delta Slim on the stage, like kind of egging him on, and with him, he's able to perform in a way he had never played before. And I think that was really beautiful, and it was really intentional. Yeah. And it's why having a director like that who doesn't just call cut when the line is done is imperative for these kinds of, I think this movie is going to be one of those movies that marks our generation. Yeah. Like, watching it for the first time, and I think this is a good segue into the scene. Oh my God. When I saw it the first time, I had like that face, like when someone like raps a bar or something that's just so crazy, like double on top. You're like looking around like, did you just fucking see this shit? I'm looking at my brother. I'm like looking at people behind me. I'm like, are you seeing what's going on right now? Yeah. It was like unreal, because there's no kind of like hint to that something like that is possible. I mean, I guess there is. They mentioned in the very beginning that it transcends like generations, like music, and like you can get connected to your ancestors. But the fact that they went forward as well, and then like the song or the blues has like then a record scratch, and then they go into 80s hip hop, and then not only 80s hip hop, West Coast hip hop with like the synths and everything, and knowing that Ryan Coogler from Oakland, he's putting that kind of stamp in there too. And I'm just like, God damn. And then the dancers coming in from different generations. It's something that I have never seen in a movie before. I've never seen another movie do something like that and then not make it the focal point of the movie. Right. That's, I think, what it happened once, it doesn't happen again, and that's it. it makes it so astounding to me, is like, that is the scene, but it doesn't even really happen at a pivotal moment in the movie. It's not the most important thing that happens, even though it's the thing that, like, if you
it gets the ball rolling for the important stuff.
Yeah, you're like sucked in, and you don't know what to do with yourself except be an observer. And I don't know if he meant to do this, but for me, as someone who has studied the history of music and knows and gets so angry when, like, a certain group of people, usually white people, unfortunately,
vampires,
when they love to claim a certain type of music as their own, or they saturate a certain thing, and they're like, well, black people don't belong here, and like all that racist shit. It's like, well, actually, all music is black.
Yeah.
Or some other, it might be East Asian or something like that. But the music that we love and enjoy in America comes from black culture. And that's why you can layer all of those musics together. All of those different genres can sit on top of each other and sound cohesive, because it all comes from one place, from one soul and one community.
For sure.
And it was kind of just like I see you, Ryan.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think part of that is, like, I remember, like, in 2020 when there was a lot of, like, bad, not that it's any better now, but bad race relations, and coming from the perspective of a person who's not white and not black, and a person who, like, a lot of the things that kind of molded me today were from black culture. I have to, like, understand, like, where my place is in that. And from that, I'm not gonna, like, do the whole thing here, but I, like, wrote a poem about it. It was called, like, Praise Thy Mother. And essentially it's kind of like the gist of the poem is, like, everything that you feel as a American, that, oh, this is my culture, these are things that I like, these are things that I enjoy, especially, like, artistic, culturally, and otherwise, in some way or shape or form, is a derivative of some kind of black art form, right? Yeah. And then all the struggle that they went through, and then years later, you just, like, turn around and shit on everything, and, like, there's racist people who love hip-hop. Or there's racist people who love rock and roll. There's racist people. I'm like, it takes even more to just know the truth, is to, like, fully, like, soak it in, embrace it. And there's nothing to stop you from enjoying it or partaking or whatever. But to understand the kind of where things come from changes your perspective on, like, how you operate as a human being. So then to see that kind of, like, generational thing in the movie where that scene happens, it's kind of like hey, don't forget. And then, all right, back to the regularly scheduled program. Yeah. Which I thought it was unreal, because any other film would have made that the movie. Where, oh, this guy's so good at singing. And then there's ghosts from the future coming, and there's ghosts from the past, and they're all hanging out, and hijinks ensue. And then...
hijinks.
But it was kind of just him saying, like, hey, don't forget. And then another thing that I saw online, a lot of this... part of me wanted to be like, oh, I don't want to read about it. I don't want to, like, I want to have my own opinions, but learning from other people's experiences and their perceptions of the movie helps a lot. Absolutely. Because people even mentioned that something I didn't even think about is I don't think it's giving Ryan too much credit, because I think he's very meticulous, but even the fact that, like, when Sammy was singing and the place burst into flames, metaphorically, it's kind of like the roof is on fire.
I literally said that in the theater. I was like, the roof is on fire.
And I didn't even, like, think of that. Yeah. I was like, this guy's just, like, fucking it up so bad that everything's, like, going, and then, like burn the house, like, bring the house down. Yeah. He literally brought the house down.
That phrase, I don't remember the full etymology of it, but it literally has something to do with, like, being so good at something or performing so well that something catches fire. Like, I think that's the root of the phrase. Yeah. And so including that in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way, it's very Ryan Coogler. And I really appreciated it.
Yeah. Because, and then to use that as an opportunity to make it, like, a quote-unquote glass house where you can see in, that the three vampires are seeing, like, this is what we want. We want what's going on in there. Which, hey, I understand. That shit fucking jumping. Yeah. I don't want to be in there too.
So let's talk about that. I mean, that to me was, like, the obvious theme of the movie. Of it's not just, like, white people versus black people, because at the end of the day, we got everybody on both sides. But the vampirism of black culture. It's what I figured the movie's probably about. And I haven't listened to Ryan Coogler talk about it and say if that's literally what it is. But how many times have we seen just in the past couple of years since like the rise of TikTok, we've seen Black culture on display, Black love, Black joy on display, and then some other person, usually
I need to get involved. Do you guys have a permit?
they're just here, and instead of enjoying something and wanting to be a part of it, they want to take it for themselves, and then they want you to join them as if they created this whole thing. Yeah, you owe them, and you should, worship them. All of the vampires were connected under that one guy. Yeah. Because he was the one in charge. He was the one choosing the music that they were singing and dancing to. Those were his songs. They all shared his brain. Whereas this whole community on the other side, the Black community,
they're getting that without any of that.
Without any of that. They don't need to have a hive mind. They're just connected because they actually listen to each other. They look at each other. They look for cues, and
they have souls
together. They have souls. So, I mean, that whole message to me was something that I hope people grasp and doesn't like fully go over their head.
That's why when people kind of say that it's a horror movie, in one sense, okay, yeah, but I think it's even beyond that. Horror is just a means to kind of tell a specific other story. And even there was a lot of aspects to it. That's why only a subsection of the movie is actually horror. There's not like there's jump scares everywhere, and then the horror is the cultural vampirism, or as they even have like the vultures going above like that Courage's house, and the vultures. I think they were above the juke joint when they were getting it sold. It's like the culture vulture aspect of it. Is with knowing Ryan Coogler, knowing that this is his passion project, that nothing is going to be an accident, and so I think like those little things, like, and even down to the detail of making the vampire Irish, knowing that.
No, Irish to the Irish folk. I love it.
No, well, I think it's very important because the Irish people have their own history of like oppression and getting their land stolen and their culture stolen and stuff like that. And it kind of emphasizes the fact that Remick is not doing this because he dislikes Black people, or he wants to bring them in. The issue is that he's doing it in a vampiric way, obviously, but not in the way that it should be, which a lot of people in real life who are not vampires do it in that same way. Like, why can't you, like, I expect to be let in, and I expect you to let me do what you're doing or enjoy what you're doing, and then take it and make it my own.
Exactly.
Right? Because it lasts longer with like people are saying, like, it lasts longer with the vampire, but it has no soul to it.
Yeah. So
you could take it, but you won't have the soul of where it originated from.
Yeah, it's like the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. You can come in and enjoy this, pay, like, I mean, he was saying, like, I have money, I'll pay, but we all know that that's not what he was trying to do. And anyone who really wanted to appreciate the culture would be part of it in a different way, like Mary. Like, it's just, she's part of it, she appreciates it, and it's not anything different or like, exotic. It was just what it is. Yeah. And she loved it for what it was.
Yeah, like there's Mary, Bo, and Grace in there, and no one's batting an eye. It's all normal.
Yeah.
But for him, it's abnormal because that's not his culture. He's not even like around it. He's just attracted to it. It's like more of an infatuation than an actual, this is kind of like either my culture or something that I want to kind of just be a part of. Yeah. And obviously he's a vampire. He has other shit to worry, like other like intentions. But I thought it was just interesting to make him specifically Irish, because then it's not just, because then you have double white people bad. Like, you already have the KKK. If he's like, I hate Black people and I also just want to take your blood, then it's kind of like unnecessarily like double. Then you could have just made it a movie about a bunch of people in a juke joint and the KKK try to fight and they fight him off.
But I think that's the point, is like, it's not really like a race war.
Yeah.
It's a culture war in a sense, because also at that time and then shortly after, Irish people were coming to America and they were being treated like Black people.
Yeah. Italians were basically Black.
Yeah. Like, they lost so much in their own genocides of what the British did to them. And, I forget what they call it. Yeah. Except for my friends that live there, you're pretty cool.
Isn't it?
and
Bruv.
Yeah.
My bad.
It's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Well, what day is it today? Monday. It's Monday.
Yeah.
It's Monday. So close to that being like a literal joke. Anyway.
This is coming out on Tuesday, hopefully.
But yeah, I just think it's a great way to make the movie feel even more real. Of like, he's not just some random guy. He's not Irish because of purposes. Like, he's literally probably in this country and had everything taken from him, and he's trying to build community, but goes about it in the absolute worst fucking way.
Which is why when him and Sammy are in that pond and Sammy starts, I guess, reading scripture, I don't know what particular prayer that he was saying.
It was the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah. It's just whenever things are going wrong, I guess you just say,
I'm a bad Christian.
Get out the juke joint. Or maybe get in the juke joint. But and then Remick starts reciting it back to him, like, hey, because I don't know if were Irish people originally Protestant or something else, and then the Catholics came, or the other way around.
They were originally
Anglo-Saxons. They were not Catholic.
They had their own
thing. Yeah.
No, they were Catholic, I guess, for a while.
Yeah.
But I think even to this day, Irish Catholic is like,
because I think the Catholic
predominant
came in, but that's kind of like, he's like, the same people who came to oppress me were saying these prayers to me.
Yeah.
So he's like, what you're saying right now, like, hey, listen, I get it, but which is scary.
I also thought that maybe that was another like little message that Ryan was putting in of like, religion is oppression. I'm sorry to say, you heard it here, folks. Religion can oppress people.
I would say that it's like the usage of spirituality could be healing or threatening.
The way that you use religion,
because Annie used spirituality, right? Her own connection with, like, she has her own basis of her connection with spirituality, holding it down for everybody. Like, without her,
saving lives.
She was the strategist. Little Marvel rivals.
Yeah.
But, and I liked how, like, everyone just listened to her. They didn't like denounce her. So that's why I was like, I took away of it in that, like, faith is strong. Whether you use it for good or bad is up to you. And that is, like, shown within the movie. Because it's not like that. I even thought that Remick was religious. He was just trying to use things to get his way. It's very white of him. But I thought that was, like, a really interesting scene. I'm so stupid. I thought what's Preacher Boy's name? Sammy?
Sammy.
I thought he was gonna say the prayer and that whole pond was gonna turn into holy water. And then he was gonna get cracked. And then but then he flipped it on him, started saying it. I'm like, oh, we're screwed.
Could be a thing.
But
I think because Christianity isn't based in like ancestral wisdom and ancestral knowledge, that wasn't gonna be the way that it went. Yeah, that probably would have happened in like Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
That's the vampire lore.
I was like, good strategy. I would have. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm trying to think of what, like, other key points within the movie. Basically, because everyone just gets cracked at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Delta Slim, what a G. He's like, I'm out of here. And he even said, he's like, if the devil came here for you, he's going to have to get through me. And he stood by it.
Yeah.
He, like, cut himself, took a swig. He's like, I'm out of here. Which I love him. He's my favorite.
I think I was sitting next to Josh in the theater, and he was
Insert Josh here.
My lovely husband. And at one point we both turned to each other. I forget what Delta Slim had said. It might have been that, honestly. We looked at each other and he was like, he's not going to make it. No.
He set himself up for that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, those are the movie rules.
Yeah.
If you say something like that, you're going to die. And I was really sad, but I do think that his sacrifice changed the outcome. Like, he bought for them the time that they needed, because it was really slim. It was really close at the end.
One could say Delta Slim.
One could say Delta Slim at the end.
Delta Slim.
Who we haven't talked about is, I think, was introduced for comedic purposes. But
Cornbread.
Fuck my boy.
I love Cornbread.
What a man. So funny.
Like a big, just
dumbass.
Dumbass. And I love his wife. Unironically, Cornbread's wife. She was like, well, how much money we
get that shmoney. Yeah. Don't fuck up our fucking family because of your fucking ideals.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out there. Yeah. That was funny. I wonder, man. I mean, he, like, I wonder what like his wife thinks about like after everything happened. Like
I did wonder about
like
that.
what are
I
the
was
people who are still there?
Yeah, she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Is she gonna get her money? You know,
I don't know, but I think he it was actually interesting with him. Once again, not necessarily my own thoughts, but something I've seen was that when he was talking with them right after he got turned into a vampire,
yeah,
he's speaking in their like vernacular, but something's not right.
something's not right.
He's like, "We's all his families," and like he wasn't talking like that previously. Like it's like a caricature of what. It's probably like Remick is like, this is how they talk.
Exactly.
Like,
no, because they're all sharing his brain.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh yeah, this is how he talks.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, he was kind of close.
Mhm.
So props
It's
to him.
almost
for being
there,
a good
but, like,
voice actor, but like
it's uncanny in a sense.
it was Uncanny Valley. That's exactly what it was. And I mean, like we know that if he's out there peeing for 10, 15 minutes, that he's probably been turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
But it was so like eerie.
Mhm.
That was probably one of the more horrifying moments of the movie.
His stupid ass, like
yeah.
like with his hand like this.
Yeah.
Like, well, throw the fucking money at him. What are you fucking doing? But Annie's dead ass like, be careful. And then Smoke's like, fucking here you go.
I was so pissed.
Yeah.
That was probably the dumbest thing he did the whole movie. I was like, you're a smart man.
He had a quick draw though. He fucking blasted that guy in the fuck in like 1 second. And then they were outside for a second.
Yeah, almost at the cost of his life though. Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's when I was like white knuckling the sides of the chair.
He literally grabbed his head. You could like see his like face turn. I also small details. I like the small details of their vampiric look with their eyes like changing and their like teeth.
Yeah.
But it's not always there. But the eyes thing really caught me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very just unnerving how their eyes turned like glazed.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And then when they're outside, it was like red
and glowy.
Yeah.
And Josh noticed it too. He had mentioned, he's like, well, that guy's eyes are blue. Like some of them just had different colors. And I don't know if it means something, but some of them were blue, more like white. The most common one was like red.
Yeah.
There was blue and then like a purpley blue also.
I think it's kind of like, it was like a reflection. I don't know. It was kind of reminding me of like cats and dogs when you see them at night that their eyes reflect.
Reflect off.
So I thought when they were in the dark, their eyes were red. And when they were in like some kind of lighted scenario, their eyes were more like bluish or whatever. But I don't know if there's any other reasoning beyond that. But speaking of colors, I like just the difference between Smoke and Stack. How one had the blue hat, one had the red hat. And then also that Stack was dressed like an Italian kind of suit in style. And Smoke was in a kind of Irish with the like whatever kind of, I don't know,
newsboy page hat. Yeah.
And so knowing their backstory of how they kind of infiltrated the mob and mafia underworld and pitting the Irish and the Italian mob against each other.
Yeah.
And then you would know that, okay, Stack was hanging out with the Italians and then Smoke was hanging out with the Irish. And that's why they like dressed like that.
Do you think that maybe they thought they were the same person?
Yeah. So they probably like were able to get in and out of places with that understanding.
Wait a second. That's crazy.
Yeah. Or they probably didn't even. Yeah, like one day Stack could dress up Irish and then go in and learn some stuff and then tell them about it, and then vice versa.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I guess you don't really have to be a twin to do that.
No, I guess not. But I guess that makes it kind of cool.
But if no one knows that you're a twin, then someone says you did something like, no, I was on this side of town, and you have an alibi.
And you have an alibi. Yeah. That's probably exactly how they're like, no, your buddy's lying to you.
They did it. I don't know, but they did have like newspaper clippings like Smokestack twins, something. Okay. So I don't know if people, hey, listen, Ryan.
I don't know, Ryan.
Fix it in post.
Fix it in post.
But yeah.
But the color in the movie too, I think, I mean, it had to be intentional. Props to the costume designer. Even like Mary's outfits too, of like being more of a diluted color.
Yeah.
Because she was with, sorry, that's my,
scared the shit out of
my HVAC.
I was like, we didn't even invite nobody in, and they're always fucking busting the door down.
The HVAC is super loud. What was I saying?
Mary's outfit.
The colors that she wears is like a lighter pink instead of like the red that Stack wears.
Yeah.
And then Annie, if I'm
that's true.
If I'm remembering correctly,
dark.
she wears like a more earthy tone, purpley blue to kind of match Smoke there. And it's like another homage to, I think, just how these women, as strong and as powerful as they are, they're still very connected to the men that they love. And I just thought that was really romantic.
And they're like a more subdued version of them. Like Mary's is like headstrong, just like Stack is, a little bit less so. And Annie's very logical and reasonable, but implements more of like the calming presence, whereas Smoke is a little too callous. He's like, this is how it is, this is how it's going to be, and that's how it's going to go. So I kind of like that aspect of like, they were not like opposites, but they were just the better versions of the other.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
like
really
everything
nice.
in moderation, and women usually have that figured out a little bit better.
Balance.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads to another thing. Like the one thing that I'll dislike about this movie didn't even happen in the movie. It's the fact that the trailers, I feel like, gave too much away. I felt like it would have been nice to not know some of these things, but one thing that did switch with me that I didn't take from the trailers was I was under the impression, based on the trailers, that without knowing any of the story, that Smoke, now that we know their name, we didn't know their names, but Smoke was going to be the good twin. And then he has an evil twin brother, which is Stack, who probably goes out in the world and gets himself into some shit and brings this shit back.
Yeah.
But in reality, that wasn't the case. He was just a he was just like the more chill one.
Yeah.
And that's because Smoke took on the trauma for him. He had to kill his own dad because he was beating on Stack. And he had to do all like the hard shit. Whereas Stack had then the leeway to kind of be more himself and be more free. Even when it came to Remick showing up to the door and doing his little diddly do, Stack was like, all right, fuck it up, white boy, all right. Maybe we could let him in. It's like, so I thought that was really cool. And Smoke is like, what the fuck is going on here? He's like, we let them in, fucking bad shit's gonna happen regardless. So I thought that was a really nice dynamic between them. And then for Stack to turn into the evil one, he still has that kind of personality, which makes me think that they're just corrupted versions of themselves. Like they still feel some kind of their own feelings.
I mean,
but it's
he
just
still
corrupted.
loved Mary even after changing.
He still loved Mary. He still loved his brother enough to not. I don't know if he couldn't bite him because he loved him, or because he had that voodoo thing on him. But he could have bit him and then he didn't. And then Smoke got the upper hand. And then he also kept his word.
Yeah, he promised not to hurt.
And so he didn't.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a corruption more so than they're not themselves entirely. Like even when Annie got killed, they were like, Mary was like screamed no and then like ran away. I mean, she wanted her to be alive so that they could take her into the vampire world, but there's still like a love there. Not like they're like mind controlled, aimless.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like really cool. And another just small point, I like that Ryan Coogler just like, I'm not going to reinvent the vampire. Whatever is the tropes of a vampire is what it's going to be. And that's not the important part, which I like, oh, the garlic, you can't let them in if they're asked, or whatever. Because I think nowadays,
dying at sunrise.
Yeah,
and all of that,
a lot of days it's like when vampire stuff's introduced, they're like, oh, well, it's not kind of exactly like that here. We're gonna do something different. Like even like Nosferatu, like there's like different vibes, and like I'm gonna give him a mustache, and like, which I'm like, all right, you lost me there. I'm just kidding.
Vampire's gonna have facial hair.
But like if it's like a TV show, like or like for example like Twilight, like oh, we're in the sun, we just sparkle.
Sparkle, yeah. And
like,
they're
all right,
they're metallic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they didn't have to reinvent the wheel or introduce any new lore. He's like, you know what a vampire is? These are the rules. That's not the issue. The issue is they're trying to get in here, right? We're not trying to figure out a new kind of world building like magic system.
Yeah.
You know what? So I like it how they said it even verbally. Like they use the word vampires even. Like even like zombie movies, they try to avoid even using like they're walkers or they're like they're infected.
Night walkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, they're zombies, but they don't want to say it because then it's like, oh, then it's too on the nose. But and he's like, these are fucking vampires, yo.
Yeah, I mean they're written down in
Yeah.
history. Almost every culture has some version of a vampire, and it's like, yeah, you should name it. We're talking about all of this spiritual stuff. I mean, it just makes sense that Annie would. I do like the confusion that she thought they were something else at first.
She's like, was it Hags or Hates or something?
I
don't know what that was. I was gonna Google it.
I had
right
never
now.
heard of it before.
That makes me scared because there's
Yeah,
something
actually-
else out here doing.
Wait, there's something else maybe?
Maybe it was like a skinwalker kind of thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Which Ryan Coogler, make a Skinwalker movie.
Mhm.
That would be really good.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I think one of the last things, I don't know if we covered a lot of things, but the last things is like the technical aspect of the movie, like from cinematography, we talked a little bit about that. Yeah. But then the music with Ludwig Göransson, which is funny enough, he was Ryan Coogler's like college roommate.
Really?
They met in college and they were just hanging out and they started making stuff together, and Ludwig made the music for Black Panther.
Yeah.
And he studies things deeply of like the culture as to like the emphasis of like why certain instruments are used and like certain tempos and beats for like the music. So even though he's just a white guy, it's an example of like, hey, if you put the effort into like learning the culture and being a part of it, you get woven in, and you can, not only that, you can create from there. No one's like, why is he doing it?
Yeah.
They're happy that he's doing
appreciation, not appropriation.
He put his whole fucking Banjussi in that bitch.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's the episode. Yeah, I think we covered everything. I don't know, is there anything else that you want to talk about from the movie?
No, I mean,
I think I've said what I need to say. Delta Slim forever, that's all I know. Delta
is that his? Oh, it is a triangle. Yeah.
Mississippi Delta.
Which is where this took place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been to New Orleans, which is not in that area, but I've like seen like, I went to like voodoo stores and I'm like, I don't believe this shit. I walked in, I'm like, oh, hold on. This is so scary. Although Annie like did come through clutch,
yeah,
I'd be like, hey, listen.
Well, all the voodoo stuff in those stores, because I've been into those stores in New Orleans as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's sensationalized. Mm-hmm. It's not real unless you make it real. A lot of spiritualism, because I've started to study it. I've tried to study Wiccan practices as well. It's really
all right. That's a show.
It's really about the intention that you put behind things. Mm-hmm. And then there are certain things in nature that amplify those intentions.
Yeah, that's actually interesting that you said that. I was actually just telling this to my parents the other day. I'm like, religion only amplifies what you already are. Mm-hmm. If you're already, let's say, a good person, you'll have more reason to do good because of the religion, blah, blah, blah. But if you're a bad person, you'll use the religion to kind of justify wrongdoings and stuff like that. So it's just a magnifying glass to whatever you are inside. Because a lot of people, they're going to do what they want to do regardless. They just got to figure out what kind of justification reasoning they're going to use to do that.
Exactly.
So I think, yeah, I don't know if they really talk about that aspect in the movie a lot, but I think that's just an interesting point. But
it's definitely there. I think it's really interesting to me that in one community you can have two sort of leaders in there. Mm-hmm. Preacher boys, preacher dad. I don't know what his name is. Mm-hmm. Preacher dad, we'll call him. And Annie. They serve the same people. They love the same people, mm-hmm. but they go about doing it in two very different ways. Not one of them, I think, is like right or wrong, mm-hmm. but there's a lot of like, I mean, prayer and the way that you worship in church is just manifestation. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing as like calling out to your ancestors and saying, we collectively have the power to do this thing. We have the power to overcome this. We need to come together and do it. Yeah. Versus calling out to your God and saying, you have the power, give it to me, please. It's the same thing, just two different thoughts. Yeah,
people like reaching out to a world beyond themselves for whatever purposes they have. Yeah. And then you mentioned like the two different versions, like even like Remick and Smoke are like very opposite of each other and also kind of doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Smoke is obviously more reserved and like whatever, and Remick is more outgoing and like has a lot of like charisma to him. Yeah. But they were both bringing like together a community that's surrounded by like music. Like when they were doing the Irish dancing outside, they're all hanging out and like having a jolly good time. I don't know what the fuck, but they were doing that outside, like obviously after, but like previously they were all doing that inside the juke joint. Yeah. So it's kind of like there's a dichotomy there as well, that people will find reasons to do something, and it takes away the aspect of like, oh, music is good or music is bad or evil and stuff like that, because it was for good inside the house. Yeah. It was for bad outside the house.
It was for bad outside the house.
So a lot of it is just like people like having justification and reasoning for their actions, but at the end of the day, it's like intention.
Yeah.
So,
and I still believe, maybe it's because I've watched too many Marvel movies, read too many comics, I don't know. I still believe at the end of the day that good will triumph over evil. And that's what we get at the end of the movie.
oh, that
Battery low.
camera died.
Uh-oh. Well, that's all.
Yeah, hold on. Oh, we could both be here. All right, that camera died, but I think we wrapped it up pretty nicely. I think the camera's like, stop talking. But I think we like squeezed it dry. I don't know if there's anything else to talk about this movie. It's like amazing. But let them know if they want them to find you anywhere on like socials or anything like that.
Don't find me.
Yeah, that's what Miles said. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, Miles is like, don't find me. All right.
I'll find you if I'm interested, but don't find me.
She's not inviting you in, so you're not allowed to come.
Yeah, you're not. That's the joke.
The moral of the story.
You are not welcome unless I love you.
And then maybe just don't be talking weird like cornbread. And then, but yeah, until next time.